The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by Alberta Canola Producers Commission, Sask Canola, and Manitoba Canola Growers.
Debra Murphy here. We are at Farm Tech, joined by Boyd Morey, a research scientist with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada. And today we're talking about Midge, and specifically Midge in canola. And Boyd, you've been doing quite a bit of work in this area because the Swede Midge in Saskatchewan may not be the Swede Midge we thought it was.
That's right. So we have now behavioral evidence. We know that what we thought was Swede Midge in Saskatchewan isn't attracted to our pheromone traps for Swede Midge. And so that's kind of a strike against it. We also, looking at what we thought, again, was Swede Midge in Saskatchewan and comparing it with true Swede Midge, there's subtle physical differences.
It's hairier.
It's hairier.
More robust.
That's right, yes. They grow them bigger on the prairies.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we also have some genetic evidence now that indicates it's not actually the same species. So now it's an entirely different species. It's not Swede Midge.
So what does this mean for you?
It means more work. It means we need to know more about it. From what we know so far, we know that it hasn't been described anywhere else in the world. So we really need to put a name to it, which we're currently working on. We know it's in the same genus as Swede Midge, so it's closely related, but it's not the same species. We have a tentative common name. Right now we're calling it the canola flower midge. And then we're working on the publication to actually get a formal scientific name for it.
So we've seen some of the symptoms it produces in canola. Is it a pest?
It's a good question. So right now, the only symptom that we can positively associate with it is these bottled or galled flowers. And when we're looking for them, honestly, in a lot of fields, it's like finding a needle in a haystack. When we did our distribution survey in 2017, we were surveying 100 racemes per field. And a lot of times, if we were finding it, we were only finding maybe 1 or 2 flowers in those 100 racemes. So it's really difficult to find. That being said, in northeastern Saskatchewan, it's easier to find. But even then, we were only seeing, maybe 5 to 10 flowers in our sample. So we're not really sure at the moment if it's a pest. If populations continue to build and more flowers are affected, then definitely there could be some yield loss. But we really need to monitor it and try and figure out how much yield loss it can do over the course of multiple years.
So do we know about the distribution of this species?
So right now, yes, we've kind of narrowed it down. We know basically in Alberta it goes as far west, positively identified as far west as Wainwright, and then up north to about Smoky Lake. We've found some what we consider damage symptoms further out, but we haven't been able to positively identify them being caused by this midge. We didn't find any larvae in those flowers. It goes all the way east into the Swan River Valley in Manitoba. And in Saskatchewan, the northern limit is basically the forest. And down south, we're about Kamsack, Saskatchewan, around Yorkton. And so we have that. That's kind of for right now, that's what we know for the distribution. We've looked further south and haven't found it, but we don't know if it's a native species. We don't know if it's invasive. So that's one thing we really need to work on. We're going to have some collaborators in Ontario look for some damage symptoms out there, see if they can find it there as well.
If it's a native species, why would we have missed it? Is it just the subtlety of its symptoms?
It could be, yes. These populations might have been slowly building, and we just never noticed it. The symptoms, if you're not looking in the field at the right time, you might totally miss it. And then when they first found Swede Midge in Saskatchewan in 2007, then after that, the only damage they noticed, because they started looking a lot after that, the only damage they noticed were these flower galls. And Swede Midge very rarely actually causes those galls if you look in other areas where it's found.
Like in Ontario?
In Ontario, exactly. In Ontario, they very rarely find flower galls, and even in Europe, where Swede Midge is pretty widespread, they, again, very, very rarely find flower galls.
So what are you suggesting to farmers who think they may have Swede Midge in their fields? Or the new midge,
okay.
pardon me.
If they have this new canola flower midge, get in touch with their agronomist, their local agronomist, and they can have a look at it. They can contact us. We can take some samples and we can determine what midge species it is. If they think they have Swede midge, they should definitely contact us, and they should definitely contact their local agronomist, because right now we haven't found it in basically the last 8 to 10 years.
Well, here's hoping the Prairie provinces stay clear of Swede midge,
Exactly.
and we find out who this new one is.
Exactly.
Boyd, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.